Good afternoon. I'm George Latimer, Westchester County Executive, and welcome to our Westchester Weekly Update. Today is Monday, August 28th, the last Monday of the summer. As you can see, I'm in my summer work clothes today, and very happy to give you an update of some of the issues that are happening here in Westchester County. In a few minutes, I'm going to invite to the podium the mayor of the village of Tuckahoe, Omira Andino, and she'll give you an update about the village of Tuckahoe. Over 7,000 residents, wonderful community as they all are in Westchester County. We're very happy to have Mayor Andino back to tell us a little bit about what's happening in that community. In our report today, we're going to cover a big vaping bust that occurred through our Department of Health and some police resources to show that we're enforcing the Tobacco 21 legislation. We're going to talk a little bit about severe weather that's on the docket. You know, we're into a period of time where we're officially in hurricane season. It gets worse in September as we look to September, so we're going to cover on some of those things. We'll give you an update on some of our parks activities as we're looking forward to going from the summer month into the fall months. I want to talk a little bit about some of our interaction with neighborhood associations on backyard neighborhood issues. And then we'll also give you a full update on the migrant asylum seeker issue. We'll talk a little bit about not just the numbers that we have right now, but the context of where we're in. It's a very volatile issue. We're hearing a lot about it from everybody. And let me remind you at the outset that the Beeline bus system is still free of fares for today and through next weekend being Labor Day weekend, up to and including Labor Day Monday, September 4th. You can ride the Beeline buses and the paratransit system without fare. Now, we started that this year, as we did last summer. We started that this year on July 1st through 4th of July weekend, full month of July, and now the full month of August, and you get the little extra couple of days in through Labor Day weekend. So make good use of it. It's a wonderful system, the Beeline bus system. If you've ridden the buses, you'll know now that they're electric and electric hybrid buses, so they're cleaner in the way they operate every day. You won't get that blast of diesel fuel in your nose from the bus stop when it pulls away from the bus station, and you'll have an opportunity to have a good, safe ride, get to whatever your final destination is. That is still underway, and we want to make sure you know that for today's update. So next up, let me bring on the mayor of the village of Tuckahoe, Omira Andino. Omira has served now in her second term as mayor. She served previously as a village trustee, and she and her board of trustees are dealing with all the range of issues that every village has to deal with. It's a wonderful community sort of in the south central part of our county, adjacent to the Bronx River Parkway and the Hutchinson River Parkway, close on the other side. So she's right in the heart of the action, and we're happy that she's with us today. Mayor Omira Andino. Madam Mayor, thank you for being with us.
Executive, thank you. And just one correction, I am in my first term as mayor. It feels like the second term. But good afternoon, everyone. As the county executive said, my name is Omira Andino, and I am the mayor in Tuckahoe. This is my first term, and I'm at the end of my first term because the village has moved their elections from March. The village elections were moved from March to November through a referendum, and the village voted to move the elections on election day. A little bit of information about Tuckahoe. As the county executive mentioned, we are 7,100 strong. We are in Lower Westchester, and many people don't sometimes understand municipalities and how they work in Westchester. I'm from Brooklyn, so I often have to explain to people that we are the village of Tuckahoe in the town of Eastchester, as is the village of Bronxville with our neighbors. I have some wonderful news in Tuckahoe. We just had our S&P bond rating upgraded to the highest it's ever been, a AA+. So we are very excited about that. I got a few young people ask me, so what's the big deal? And I'm glad that they asked, because they're trying to learn about government and trying to learn more about what these terms mean when you're working in government. So the S&P bond rating, for those who are not familiar, is basically your credit score. And as we all know, the higher your credit score is, the better it is for you to get loans and interest rates. It allows us to invest in our community, and we are very excited because the agency cited Tuckahoe's conservative budgeting practices, our budget monitoring, as well as our substantial reserves. And so we can't stress enough how important it's been for us in the last 5 years that I've been in office, in elective office as trustee and mayor, that we've worked hard to make sure that our reserves are intact, because we need them when things get difficult and you need to tap into some savings, but it also helps us with our bond rating. So we're excited about that, County Executive. And then we have some capital projects that are already in the works. Our library is going to be completely remodeled, and we're in the middle of figuring out how to move things up into the community center and continue to serve the community. So we are really looking forward to a brand new library that we've been planning and working on for some years now. Where last fall we had a complete makeover of our playground on Main Street, and we celebrated with a ribbon cutting and a reopening. I mentioned at the last briefing that I was here in 2022 that we were in the process of working with NYSERDA to install electric charging stations. County Executive and others were there when we had our press conference to announce that we have opened them. We have 17 stations with a total of 34 ports. And so I'm happy to be able to provide residents and visitors with the opportunity, if you have an electric vehicle, to charge in Tuckahoe. And we hope that that will encourage you to shop local in Tuckahoe. We have some wonderful shops and restaurants, as the county executive has previously mentioned. We're also very happy that we have really invested in our community. 30% of our roads and 50% of our lots were upgraded in the last several years. Our traffic lights have been a big challenge because the infrastructure is eroding. So we have upgraded several of our traffic lights to help ease congestion and make traffic flow a little bit more efficient. While we're making great strides in tackling our infrastructure, we continue to need financial assistance from our partners in government, and we're really grateful to be able to call on our county, our state senator Shelley Mayer, and our Assemblywoman Amy Paulin, who are all very attentive to our needs and responsive to our requests in Tuckahoe. And this year we applied for a grant through the Congressman Bowman's office, and were approved for $1 million to continue to address additional traffic light upgrades and begin to plan for the renewal of our downtown Depot Square. So this is very exciting for us, as we've been planning for a couple of years, and we're anxious to get all of this work done. And in Tuckahoe, if you know anything about us, we like to have fun. So we've had a lot of events for the community, not just community in Tuckahoe, but our neighboring communities. We've always included everyone who would like to come. We've sponsored a village event called Heroes Next Door last November, where we paid tribute to those who served in the military. The program was interactive and educational, and visitors had an opportunity to learn stories about those veterans so that we can remember. Oftentimes we talk about Veterans Day with young people, and they don't really always understand what it means. But when we talk about the stories of the veterans who served either in combat or not in combat, it helps people connect them a little bit better, and it helps us to remember. So we're very excited about doing that again this year. A huge thank you to veteran Mike Fix for curating and helping us to make it happen, and to the Tuckahoe Schools Jazz Quartet, who provided the music, and they were really outstanding. We also partnered with the Federal Air Marshal Service to host a job fair at the Spring Hill Suites Hotel in Tuckahoe, where we encouraged young people to consider becoming an air marshal as an option once they leave high school. Last October, we held the Creepy Candy Crawl, which was the second one that we had, and it drew more than 500 people to our Main Street. We got all dressed up and even participated in a flash mob with dancers from the dance gallery in Tuckahoe. So this year we're going to have the Creepy Candy Crawl again. Thank you to our Deputy Mayor, Kara Cronin, who organizes it and gets all of the businesses in the community really engaged. So we're looking forward to that. We hope to see you, County Executive. Maybe you'll do a flash mob with us. He likes dancing and singing. And then we have movie nights. Movie nights has become really popular in Tuckahoe. We started this a couple of years ago. And again, our Deputy Mayor, Kara Cronin, hosted 3 movie nights this year. And we're really grateful to the volunteers who come out and really make these nights bring community together, and helps people meet new neighbors and just enjoy a good time. We had a lot of businesses who supported us this year. Elcon donated ice cream truck. San Fratello's donated sandwiches for one of the movie nights, and Bellagio's and Angelina's. If you know Bellagio's and Angelina's, they donated pizza. So everyone was really excited about having the businesses just really pour back into our community, and we appreciate them so much. And I can't stress enough how important it is for us to support them in return. We have some future events. The 47th Annual Tuckahoe Road Race Challenge will be on September 17th. Former Deputy Mayor Renee Howell is the director of the race, and we're raising money for EVAC, the Volunteer Ambulance Corps this year, who many do not know are not part of our tax base. So they rely heavily on donations and have struggled throughout the years. And so we saw fit to make them the beneficiary of this year's proceeds. And just also to remind everyone that the November 7th Village Board elections have been moved from March to November. So that's a big change also for Tuckahoe. So we have a lot of great changes happening, and we're trying to take care of the infrastructure, build community with the residents, and so we're really excited about all of the work that we're doing. One big bit of news is that our Chief of Police, John Costanzo, who's really loved in Tuckahoe, is retiring in October. And so we've been planning for his retirement, and thankfully we have 2 lieutenants who were up for the chief position, and we interviewed and we named Larry Rhoda as the next chief of police. As the chief said to me, you can't make a bad choice. These are 2 men who have been mentored and brought up basically by the chief, and so we know that Larry Rhoda and the entire department will continue their great work in Tuckahoe. And none of the work that we do happens without the employees, without the volunteers. So I would like to just say some thank yous to David Burke, our village administrator, who keeps the day-to-day operations going. Ryan Rueda, who was really instrumental in helping us with our bond rating increase as the treasurer. Our village hall staff and our departments and DPW and the library and the police, community center, everyone who is really just so diligent. We have a fantastic team in Tuckahoe, and we can't complain. And we have committees and board members who work on planning and zoning, and we have a new Historic Preservation Commission who's working diligently. These are all volunteers who do not get paid, and they give of their time and their talent, and we're just grateful for them. And then, of course, our village board, who works so hard to try to make sure that the community and the residents are getting what we need. Our Deputy Mayor, Kara Cronin, and trustees Darrell Taylor, Nicole Engelbert, and our newest board member, Josh Gaccione, whom I appointed this year when our Deputy Mayor, Renee Howell, stepped down. Josh also serves as the chair for the Veterans Advisory Council for the 37th District under Senator Shelley Mayer. So those are just some broad strokes of how we're doing in Tuckahoe. Things are looking good for the future. I do have to say happy birthday to my mom. Today's her birthday. She's 78 today. George, don't tell her I told everybody her age. But feliz cumpleaños, mami. Thank you, George. Thanks.
Thank you very much. That is Mayor Omaira Andino of the village of Tuckahoe. And Omaira, I'm afraid you've told the whole county about your mom's birthday, so let's hope she doesn't watch it. A few other people in the county don't watch this either, so whoever does watch it, let her break the news to Mom first. But anyway, thank you for your leadership in Tuckahoe. I've had the pleasure, prior to being county executive, of being a state senator who represented Tuckahoe in the state Senate, and I worked with your predecessors, former Mayor Greg Luisi, former Mayor Steve Eklund, and we try very hard to create a partnership between the county government and the municipal governments, all the villages and the towns and the cities, to help where we can and to do things jointly where we can. So thank you again for your time and being with us today. Thanks. So I have a number of other issues to mention. Ken Jenkins, our Deputy County Executive, is out of town this week, as he covered for me last week. And then we'll be back after Labor Day with our next update. But for today's purposes, let me mention one thing that's an important current announcement, and that is that there has been a significant action in cracking down on illegal products sold to underage individuals in the area of tobacco. The Tobacco 21 legislation was passed in Westchester County a number of years ago. Subsequently, both the state and the federal government did similar types of actions so that if you're under the age of 21, you're not able to buy tobacco products, and that includes vaping products. And with that, we made a promise last year when we dealt with the issue of whether or not we were going to ban menthol cigarettes, that we would improve our enforcement efforts to try to break through and make sure that people weren't skirting around the existing law that said that if you're under the age of 21, you should not be purchasing these products. And with part of that initiative, the Westchester County Department of Health has had more frequent and enhanced compliance checks. We go to various different businesses and we sort of test the system to make sure they are not selling products. And with those 70 inspections of licensed facilities in the county, you now have some images I think we're going to show on the screen of one of the largest illegal vape sales that our county health department has come across over the course of the time for our Adolescents Tobacco Use Prevention Act program. It occurred last week. This bust was done in combination with the Greenberg Drug and Alcohol Task Force. And the task force includes police agencies from Ardsley, Greenberg, Dobbs Ferry, Hastings, Irvington, Tarrytown, Sleepy Hollow, and North Castle. All of those police organizations together working with the county health department. The county confiscated all of the product, vaping product, and had it secured, and the operator was issued a ticket and has a hearing on the issue pending. Since the county began this enhanced enforcement, we utilized Department of Public Safety park rangers under the age of 21 and a larger group of trained staff, our sanitarians from the health department. The county has seen greater results by enforcing our tobacco regulations. The majority of checks have resulted in facilities being in compliance, but there have been multiple illegal sales of tobacco products to minors across the county, and we've seized hundreds of flavored vape tobacco products which are illegal to sell in New York State. The facilities that are found to be in violation of the New York State Public Health Law, Article 13F, are issued a ticket by the Department of Health, and significant fines may be assessed in addition to potentially losing their license to sell tobacco products. This is our efforts to enforce the laws as they exist. We made a point of saying we would work harder to do that and work cooperatively, and this bust is an example of that. So I want to compliment all of those police agencies within Greenberg, those villages who were able to work cooperatively with us in making this particular bust, and we hope it sends the message out to other vendors that we don't accept that on the side you're going to tolerate doing these things. We want to deal with them straightforward and make sure that we're protecting our young people. When you reach the age of maturity of 21 in this society, you have a choice to determine if you want to consume tobacco products or not. But under the age of 21, you don't have that voluntary opportunity, and so the merchants have to understand they do not sell these products to people under the age of 21. So that's a bit of an update. Now let's talk about probably the issue that has gotten the most amount of conversation across our county, and that is that of the asylum seekers, the migrants that are in New York and elsewhere in the United States of America. Let me first give you the update of where we are in Westchester County. In Westchester County, there are 3 sites where asylum seekers have been placed by the city of New York. There is one in the city of Yonkers, Ramada Inn on Tuckahoe Road. There's a site in Ardsley at Ardsley Acres Motel, and there's a site in White Plains at the Central Avenue Courtyard Motel. In totality, there are 400 migrants who are here housed in Westchester County. The Yonkers site has been up for 3 months. The Ardsley and the White Plains sites have been up for 2 months. In round numbers, the majority of the migrants, a slight majority of the migrants are adults, somewhere in the range of about 275 or so. About 125 are children under the age of 18. Now, we've worked directly with the 2 groups that manage these sites, West Hab and Yonkers, .go in Ardsley and White Plains, to determine that these children are not of school age. We are checking out various stories that we've heard that some of them are of school age and would have to be educated here in our system. We've been very clear to the city of New York that it is unwise to have school-age children here in the suburbs. We have different school districts. They have different capacities. They're funded in a different fashion than the New York City system is. And the New York City school system is under the control of the mayor of New York City. That is not the case here in Westchester County. As a county executive, I have no control over the school system. So we have encouraged any of these placements to be of children that are not of school age. That is our effort to try to ensure that, and we're checking now to make sure that that is the case. We were told that was the case previously. We want to make sure that continues to be the case. These 3 locations, again, Yonkers has been up for 3 months, Ardsley and White Plains have been up for 2 months. 2 most important factors. These are the areas where the county government has direct responsibility. Number 1, public safety. There have been no incidents of crime at any of these locations, no reports of crime, no reports that have come into local police departments. The Yonkers PD, the White Plains PD, and the Ardsley PDs are the direct respondents. The Westchester County Department of Public Safety serves as backup assistance that has not been called on and needed. All of the circumstances have been handled appropriately, and there have been no incidents of crime in Westchester County from any of these sites where there are asylum seekers. The second area where the county has responsibility, in this case a little more direct responsibility, is in public health. And we can state declaratively that there have been no issues of outbreaks of communicable diseases that have come from these 3 locations and the people that have come in from those locations. They have, each individual has been evaluated to determine what their level of vaccination has been, what their level of exposure to a communicable disease has been, and each of them have been, we have been ensured that there is no evidence of something that could happen in the future. Now, I know how things work out on the street. People conjecture. They give what if this and what if that, and I heard this, or I saw this on the internet. But I'm telling you declaratively, no outbreak of disease, no public crime incidents in these 2 locations. And those are the 2 major issues that have happened. The third issue that comes up in conversation is that of cost. How much is this costing Westchester County? At present, the room costs and the food costs provided to these individuals are provided by the City of New York. The City of New York contracted with these 3 hospitality, motel, hotel facilities to take on these individuals in their locations. They did not come through the county government for approval. They did not come through the city or the village or the town government for approvals. It was a contractual relationship between the City of New York and each of these hotels, motels. And those are legal transactions. And in each of those different cases, it is the City of New York that is paying for the room and board. Any other ancillary costs for public health and for public safety are absorbed in our normal budgeting. And so far, there's been nothing that has required us to overspend our budget. So therefore, there's no additional costs that have come because of the presence of these individuals within the county. Now, it's important for me not only to assert that to this date, there have been none of these incidents, but to tie it into the overall discussion and argument about migrants or immigration in the United States. Let me start out by saying I understand that there's a number of people, a significant number of people, that do not want immigrants in this country. I understand that. I read, like you read, the national political argument, and there is a school of thought, and it has its presence at the national politics and in the political dialogue of the country that we want no immigrants here at all. That argument is not an argument at town hall, village hall, or in the county office building. We don't control the federal immigration policy. And I'll give you one example of why that's the case. With migrants placed here in Westchester County by the City of New York, contractually arranged by the City of New York, I've asked the federal government to establish an immigration court in White Plains at our U.S. District Courthouse so that those claims of asylum seekers could be adjudicated promptly right in our own backyard. And then those claims could be resolved. Either grant the asylum or don't grant the asylum and complete their time in this temporary setting where they're staying in these hotels. The federal government has not chosen to agree yet to do that. I hope they will. But the bottom line is we can't impose that. The county, the town, the village has no power to create the adjudication courts. And because of that, we sit in a situation where we are now taking this humanitarian crisis that exists south of the border, and we are trying to manage that portion of it that is in front of us now. And that is what our challenge is. It is a managerial challenge, not a philosophical challenge. We don't have the ability to tell the federal government what they should do with the immigration issues. You as a citizen have every right to have your opinions, and you express those opinions on Election Day, and you express those opinions on Election Day with those at the federal government level who have the ability to change the public policy. But from our standpoint, this is the process. It's very simple. Those individuals who cross the border into the United States, whether it's in Canada or Mexico or in any other fashion that they come into the county, that they come into the country, they go to the immigration officials, and they ask for asylum consideration. They want asylum in the United States for certain sets of reasons. When they file with the immigration system tracks their case and establishes a point at which they'll be adjudicated in a court of law. They are in the country awaiting the adjudication of their case. They're here legally. They're not illegals. You can call them illegals, but you're wrong to call them illegals. The person who's illegal doesn't go to the immigration office. They sneak into the country and then they disappear into the subsystem. And there are certainly any number of people who've reached here without any documentation, and they live wherever they may live. They're not tracked in any group fashion, nor are they funded by the city of New York or any other entity for their life's work here. It's important to understand the asylum seekers, the migrants, the people you see about on TV that are coming into the Port Authority every day. They're coming into the Port Authority because it is the decision of the government of Texas, the governor of Texas, and to some extent the governor of Florida, who have determined that the accumulation of these people waiting in their states should be shared. But they have not shared it nationwide with all 48 other states. They've sent them specifically to New York, to California, and to Massachusetts. I think you understand why that is. There's a political statement being made. They've sent them to 3 states, not on the border of the southern border, and they put them there for a purpose. And now by sending them into New York City, the mayor of New York City, Eric Adams, has a right to shelter provision on the table. It is not a function of the law of the city of New York that established it. It was a court case almost 50 years ago that established that there was a right to shelter for those people in the community that were otherwise normally homeless. But that right to shelter has now been applied to those who are coming in seeking asylum who also don't have a place to shelter. So now New York City has had to, by law, provide responsible sheltering for these people. This is not an option that the mayor of New York has, nor an option of the city council. This is a requirement by a court case stipulation law. With that in mind, over the course of roughly a year leading up to the springtime, New York City absorbed increasing numbers of those individuals coming over the border, going into Texas, sending them specifically to the Port Authority of New York. And in dealing with that particular explosion, they reached a point at which they could not continue to house anymore, and now they've tried to house them outside of New York City in other places here in the state of New York. Now, let me be clear. Some of my colleagues, other county executives, issued executive orders, and many of you applauded those executive orders. Stay out of my county. We're not going to let you in. All of those executive orders were ruled by a federal court to be unconstitutional. So while the rhetoric was very strong, we're going to protect our county, they've had no effect. In Orange County and Dutchess County, places where the leaders have come out with executive orders, they have had migrant placements anyway. So we took what I considered to be the managerial approach. And I must tell you, before I was in public office, I spent 20 years in corporate America. I worked for subsidiaries of Nestle and ITT, and I understood what it was when I had a problem. I didn't like it. I had to resolve it, and I had to use my best skill set to try to address the issue at hand. That is what we're doing today. We're trying to manage that which has been laid at our doorstep, which is not of our asking for, nor of our ability to reject, but to try to do it in a humane and humanitarian way, but protecting safety, public safety, the disease element of public safety, and the crime element of public safety. And that is exactly what we have done in this government. Now, I get letters all the time. What are you doing, and how are you going to do this? This is what I'm explaining to you. This is exactly what we're doing. Since placements will come in the county, without our ability to control those placements, we will try to manage those placements, and we'll try to manage them in an intelligent way so they do not affect the people around us. And I must tell you, I travel the county every day. I have people who object to the presence of immigrants in the society, object to the presence of immigrants here, and they object on a philosophical basis. But not one of them can tell me, oh, this person in Ardsley did this, or this person in Yonkers did that, or this person in White Plains did this. It's a philosophical objection. It's a political objection. It's an ideological objection. And in a free country, people are right to have their points of view. You can express your point of view. I might add, there's an alternate philosophy as well. I've had people come up to me and say, how can I help these people? What can I donate to help these people have a life? I've gone over to meet some of these individuals with translation help. I talk to them about their experiences. And you would not trade your life experience for theirs. You know, they were born on this side of a dotted line. We were born on another side of a dotted line. As I've said before, and others have said this before, I look at my own families from Europe, Irish side of the family, Italian side of the family. They were not welcome to the United States when they came. They were allowed to come in the country because the country wanted their raw labor in those days. My great-grandfather from Italy was a qualified stone worker, and they wanted his skills to help on the different projects. I can't say they worked on the Kensico Dam, but he worked on other stone projects in this area, and he could have a life, and he could grow a family. He had 13 children coming from Italy, and one of those children was my grandfather, who became a police officer, and another sibling of my grandfather was a firefighter, and they had work inappropriately. My grandfather fought in World War I before he went on to his work in the police force, long before he passed away. So the immigrant story is one we've talked about. I understand that the people who don't want immigrants in the country don't see the connection or don't choose to see the connection. They just reject it. They say, oh, it was different. It was different then. Well, you can think it was different, but the bottom line is the hatred that was expressed to the Irish and the Italians, those folks who were Jewish who came at the turn of the century, those who came from China and Asia, the hatred expressed to them is the same kind of hatred that's expressed today by people who are here and don't want other people to come in that they think will ruin their lives. How could they ruin your life? They could ruin your life by costing you money. They aren't in Westchester as of today. They could ruin your life by spreading disease. They're not doing that in Westchester today. They could ruin your life by committing crimes. They're not doing that in Westchester today. That's what we're trying to resolve for you. We're trying to make sure that while the federal government needs to resolve this issue in a significant way, that we in the meantime are managing the process as best as we can and trying to be rational in doing that. We have also been very clear to the city of New York. Not only do we think that it would be unwise for them to send us children of a certain age, we've also said to them, we have a limited capacity of how many people we can handle. We are not structured the way the city of New York is, that our taxation structure is not the same. New York City can tax income. New York City has an unbelievably large commercial real estate base for commercial property taxes. We do not have an equivalent of that in Westchester, even though we're a wealthy county. Our resources will only go so far. Our resources are not sufficient to provide room and board for individuals who are here. That is why New York City is paying for that while they're here. And that's important for you to understand. Now, you understand it, choose not to understand it, you understand it, you agree. That's your philosophy, but I'm telling you facts. We are chasing rumors down it every day. I had a rumor a couple of weeks ago there were migrants being placed in a certain location. Not true. Doesn't matter. They think so. 4, 5, 6, 7 people tell me, well, I know. My friend, you don't know. You heard it on the internet or somebody told you, do you know what they're doing? You checked it out. They're not in the location that you said they were. Because there's anger and there's frustration and there's fear. And there's also political ideology behind it. It's a point of view that you're trying to drive across to make people have a sense of fear. We're trying to address the reality of things. And if we address the reality, then you can decide what political direction you want to have for immigration at the national level. But not based on lies, not based on fear, based on reality, based on what's actually happening on the ground, which is exactly what we're trying to deal with in these 3 locations. Let me remind you again, I have to remind you every time I talk about this because people have forgotten this fact. In 2018, Westchester County housed 1,000, more than double the number today, 1,000 migrant children in this county. They were placed here by the Trump administration. They were placed here in 4 separate locations, one in Yonkers, one in Ardsley, one in Dobbs Ferry, and one in Somers. Those children were placed here at the time when the federal policy at the border was to take children away from their parents. Parents stayed at the border. The children were housed elsewhere in the country. However many went otherwhere, I can't tell you. 1,000 of them were in Westchester County in 2018. We managed that portion of it. There was no crime, no disease spread. In approximately a year or so, those children were relocated by the federal government. We had no ability to interact with them. They were completely under the charge of the federal government. I heard not one complaint from the people that are complaining to me today. I think I know why. But the bottom line is we had 1,000 children here for a year. Right now, we have 400 that are here for 2 to 3 months. So in matters of proportion, we are not yet at the point at which we were at 5 years ago when we managed the situation effectively. That is your migrant update today. Circumstances could change by midnight tonight or before midnight tonight. They might change in the next week. They could change in the next 2 weeks. We'll try to give you a basic update as we go along. But the core facts as to why migrants are here represent federal policy that has to be addressed at the federal level. And we have been pretty clear, I think, in our public statements about what we want the federal government to do so that it doesn't fall on the backs of the village of Ardsley and the city of White Plains, the city of Yonkers, and on the county of Westchester. Let me continue with some other important updated information while we're together here in this setting. We have coming up on the 31st, which is Thursday night, an event that involves community policing. It's called Cops and Cones in the village of Mount Kisco. Now, Westchester County Police has local policing responsibility in 2 locations in the county. We share that responsibility in the town of Cortland, and we have full responsibility for that in the village of Mount Kisco. In both of those cases, it is the county police that provide local policing. And in this particular case, the Cops and Cones event is a gathering in downtown Mount Kisco. It's at the municipal parking lot on South Mosier Avenue. It's right adjacent to the Mount Kisco Metro North Station. It's a fair. It's ice cream. It's inflatable amusements. The county police will be there. Local kids from the community will be there, and they'll interact to try to create a better, stronger relationship between the community and the police. And that community policing vibe is essential. Many communities had a national night out in the early part of this month. I went to a couple of them, one in White Plains, one in Greenburgh. They were held elsewhere as well. This is an opportunity for our county police to interact directly in Mount Kisco, which is one of the 2 situations. We're going to have a few things on display there. Our helicopter and our specialized vehicles will be there so kids could take a look at it. Kids love to crawl all over different machinery and mechanical devices. And the Mount Kisco Volunteer Fire Department will participate. If we get rain on Thursday night, August 31st will happen the next night, Friday, September 1st. But we look forward for it to being a fun event. We want to thank Mayor Jean Piccinich of Mount Kisco for working so closely with us on this, members of her village board, and as well, and the Westchester County Board of Legislators, the legislator for that district, Legislator Erica Pierce, as well, as we continue to try to work those things out and have a very responsible police and community involvement. We have a police advisory board that has been created over a period of time. We've reconfigured it. It's headed by Leroy Frazier, who was a co-chair of our police reform board, and that police advisory board, which includes a lot of good people, are working on different programs, and one of them, working with our county police department, is in this area of outreach into the community. So we thank those who are the leaders of our county police department, and we also look forward to this continuing in the weeks to come. Now, we know that going from August into September is getting closer into the heart of hurricane season. And nationally, they call September National Preparedness Month because we will see hurricanes. In fact, as we're speaking today, a little later this week, Hurricane Idalia apparently is going to make her way up the southeast coast. We don't know if we'll see it on land here in New York, if it'll be out to sea by the time it reaches New York. In the next couple of days, as we get to Thursday and Friday, check the weather reports and be prepared accordingly. But we want to make sure that we all are on proper notice. If you recall, 2 years ago, it was Hurricane Ida that had landfall in New Orleans, made its way up through the Mississippi Valley, and when it got to Westchester on the night of September 1st, it hovered and it dropped tremendous amounts of rain that caused terrible flooding all across our area. And when flooding hits at a time of high tide, there's almost nothing that you can do to reduce the significant amount of rainfall and damage that occurs. But we need to be on notice. We need to be sure that we have stockpiled in our homes all those necessary items, batteries, canned foods, packaged foods, the things that will help us if we have to shelter in place, and particularly if we lose power. You also need to have a go bag ready so that if you have to evacuate, that you have essential information and material in the go bag. Don't wait to try to put it together if you're reaching a point at which you may have to leave your residency because of rising waters or any other kinds of information. They say that in that go bag, you should have a gallon of water per person per day. If you can do that, a 3-day supply of food that do not need refrigeration, a manual can opener. These are simple things. I know when I left my parents' house to bachelorette, I had to go through a list of this, and Mom had to tell me, remember to have this, remember to have that, because the average 20-year-old boy didn't think about those things. But now that we're in our mature years, be prepared, have a first aid kit available, battery-powered or a hand-crank radio so that you can stay in touch with the information. And I think probably the most important thing for preparedness is in your family. If your family is made up of children and adults and seniors, make a plan. Make a plan, sit down and say, if these things happen, this is what we're going to do. This may be a point of rendezvous if we have to do that. And then once you're in a situation where you have to leave your home, if that happens, follow the instructions, please, of those people who are tasked with giving you assistance and help. If you see there's deep flood water on one of our parkways flood, and they flood pretty quickly. Don't try to drive through the flood water. You can easily stall out, and a bad situation can become worse if you find yourself in something like that. If there's fast-moving water around you, stay in your vehicle. We have lost lives by people who got out of their vehicles and thought they could manage themselves on their own, and they wound up not surviving that experience. So all of those things are important to you. There's much more to talk about. You certainly can reach out to us in the county government. Our Department of Emergency Services will be happy to help you. We also want to go over our many recreation programs at 100 miles an hour. Bicycle Sundays will return in the month of September, but not the first weekend, which is Labor Day weekend. They will return on the weekend of September 10th, and they will run through the remaining weekends of the month of September, the 10th, the 17th, and the 24th. They'll be ready for you on October 1st as well. We closed down the Bronx River Parkway from the county center down to the Bronxville area just north of Bronxville, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. You can bicycle. It's a lot of fun. If you haven't done it, you ought to do it. And the fall is even nicer than doing it in the summertime. The weather gets cool. You see the leaves turning and all that type of stuff. The whole round trip, if you want to do the whole round trip, is 13.1 miles, and that's a good bicycle experience for you. We're very happy to do that. Our Parks Department has a lot of different events and activities coming up, even in this last week. Our pools and beaches stay open through Labor Day. And keep in mind, we have Saxon Woods Pool in White Plains. We have Wilson's Wave Pool in Wilson Woods Park in Mount Vernon. We have two of them in Yonkers. We have Spring Ridge Pool, and we have the Brook at Tibbetts, both in Yonkers. And they're open through Labor Day Monday, the 4th. So that's still in the vicinity of a week away, weather permitting. The pools will stay open a little bit, but you can't get in until you can't get in after 6 o'clock in the evening. That's when we start to close everything down. We also have two beaches that are open, Croton Point Park Beach, which opens Wednesdays through the weekend, so it wouldn't be open today or tomorrow, but we'll open this Wednesday, 11 a.m. to 6:30 p.m., and then the Glen Island Beach is open 7 days a week, and that's open on an ongoing basis. This Thursday, August 31st, if you're not going up to Mount Kisco for Cops and Cones, we have the Robeson Summer Concert Series at the Kensico Dam Plaza. There's a Dave Matthews tribute band, that's important, remember that word, tribute. 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. they're going to perform, free admission and parking at Kensico Dam Plaza. Bring your blankets, your chairs, sit down, have a good time. And then on Friday, we have Screening Under the Stars, sponsored by White Plains Hospital, and it's going to be at Glen Island Park in New Rochelle. There's a musical group that will perform at sundown, free admission, same thing. Bring your blankets, your chairs, have a good time. Squeeze those last couple of days of summer out of what we're talking about. Let me close out our report by talking about some localized issues. We have in Westchester County a number of different facilities and assets. We have our park system, we have our sewer treatment plants and airport and a host of other different facilities. In the Ludlow Park section of Yonkers, that's the southwest corner of Yonkers, the Ludlow Park Neighborhood Association is adjacent to the Yonkers Joint Wastewater Treatment Plant. And over many years, there have been concerns in that neighborhood about odors that have emanated from the sewer treatment plant. I had the opportunity to meet with a number of the key members there a couple of weeks ago, and we're working on a game plan to try to get better communication to the neighborhood from the county in its wastewater treatment plant. I want to thank Eileen O'Connor, who heads that organization. She put together a committee of 5 people to work with us. We've gotten a number of letters that outline some of the problems, and we're going to try to work through those issues. We have the cooperative support of legislator Jose Alvarado, who represents that area, and of course the city of Yonkers, Mayor Mike Spano, and members of the Common Council there as well. As we try to work through these things, they're not easy. They're expensive fixes that have to be done, but they have to be done to try to make it more livable for the people in Ludlow Park. This is very similar to a meeting we had a month ago in Sleepy Hollow at Kingsland Point Park, where Mayor Martin Rutner and myself conducted an open session where we had people from the Sleepy Hollow community to come in and talk about the future of Kingsland Point Park. And they came up with a list of different concerns and issues, and we agreed to maintain the dog park that is there. We agreed to keep the park open. We agreed to keep the Catherine Davis building still serving some of the aquatic uses that has. There's a group called Seas and T-Town that have residence facilities there. And we also agreed to continue all of the local Sleepy Hollow programs and activities at that park. Kingsland Point Park is owned by the county, but we administer it through the village of Sleepy Hollow, and we continue to have that kind of cooperative relationship. We're now trying to work on beach access and a few other things for the future. But it came out of a neighborhood meeting, just like we had a neighborhood meeting over 4 years ago at Graham School in the city of Mount Vernon in preparation for what we were going to do at Memorial Field. Now Memorial Field is done. It's a year since we've opened it. I happened to walk down there this past weekend to take a look at it. Looks great, being well maintained by the city of Mount Vernon. We're 1 year into it, so far so good. But it is an example of us trying to work through the county-local partnership. We talked about it with Mayor Andino, but all of the different mayors and supervisors that have come across our desk, come across our podium over the course of these almost 6 years now that we've been in office, to create that partnership and work to solve problems. We're in the process of doing it at Kingsland Point Park. We hope to be able to have the same impact at Ludlow Park in Yonkers. And I want to thank publicly the residents of Ludlow Park who've expressed their frustration and now hope that this will be a reestablishment of relationship that can make progress. And again, I appreciate the role that legislator Jose Alvarado has played in all of that. We have a lot of work to do in Westchester County. We are not perfect. As most of you know, I am term limited by law, a law that I suggested, to 2 terms. My tenure in this office, if I'm granted a full life, will complete itself 2 years from this December. We have plenty of work to do, and I intend to do as much of it as I can. I'm confident that the day that I leave office, there will still be undone issues and things that haven't been addressed. But we've addressed so much over the course of these 5.5 to 6 years that I have confidence that we'll accomplish more. But it's a day-by-day process, or as in the case of these updates, a week-by-week process. So we thank you for watching. We look forward to speaking to you. I assume we'll be seeing you next on Tuesday, September 5th, the day after Labor Day. So ride those buses for free up till Labor Day. Come to some of those events that I've just talked about at Kensico Dam, in Mount Kisco, in Glen Island. Enjoy the beaches, enjoy the pools, enjoy what's left of the summer. And we'll be back in the fall because we'll have more work to do in the fall. I'm George Latimer, Westchester County Executive. Thank you for watching. Have a good day and a safe week.